Welcome to the Fishing Daily podcast. In this episode, I'll be speaking to Kieran Kelly from Ocean Integrity. And Kieran is doing a lot of work in regards to plastic pollution and would like to welcome here today. Welcome, Kieran.
Hey, how are you?
Kieran, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to where you are today.
My journey, I guess it's an interesting journey. I grew up on the south coast of Ireland, Helvig, little fishing village. Ended up in the US in the late 90s. Fished out of Gloucester, Massachusetts, and fished on the west coast and fished through Central and South America and fished pretty much all over the place. That was my day job for years, half my life, I guess. How I got into this was, again, there was nothing intentional about it. It was just complete fluke. I was constantly asked by some friends in the US Coast Guard about how could they come up with a way to harvest plastic from the ocean? How could they do it on a industrial scale? And why they were worried about the lack of action, I guess, within the environmental space. Why all this money was being spent and they were getting nothing in return for it. When I started looking, I was shocked. I was shocked to see just the amount of money that you have, the big NGOs, the Greenpeaces and everything else, and taking in millions and millions of dollars on a monthly basis at times. Over trillions of dollars a year being spent on this problem. And of course, nothing being done with it. They, on a yearly basis, they write white papers saying about how bad the problem actually is. And of course, any funding that's there to address the problem disappears at that stage. The biggest reason, I guess, that I got into this, when I started looking at the problem, I was concerned. One thing I had seen up in the Bering Sea, no matter how far north you go, there was plastic. No matter how far south you go, all the way south to South Pacific, places full of plastic. There's plastic everywhere. I was constantly debating environmentalists about the source of plastic. The fishing industry being blamed for anywhere as high, it depends what environmental organization that you follow. But some of them blame as high as 70 to 80% of the plastic in the ocean coming from the fishing industry. Most of them believe it's over 10 to 20%, which of course is ludicrous. It's estimated there now that over 30 million tons a year of plastic is actually getting into our ocean. Staggering numbers. Of course, there's multiple ways to address that. The first thing, of course, is to build infrastructure ashore to stop the stuff getting in. And the second thing is to collect the amount of plastic that's in the ocean. The environmental space, for the most part, alienated themselves from the biggest group of people that's on the ocean. They collect it, and that's fishermen. There's over 54 million fishermen on this planet. The vast majority of them are indigenous fishermen. Extremely poor. What shocked me was the sheer volumes of plastic. Initially, once I got to the likes of India, Indonesia, Philippines, and multiple other countries, East and West Africa, no matter where it was, just the volumes of plastic. I'm speaking to you today from just north of, just here in North Jakarta. Just north of us here in the ocean, there's between 7 to 10 meters of plastic on the ocean floor. Remember, we done some surveys. We trawl the plastic on the ocean floor, we dredge it up, and we get it, then we wash it, we send it away, we figure out ways to recycle it. But savage volumes, savage volumes. And when we put some reports to the government here saying that volume of plastic was in the ocean, they said that's impossible. So they said they were going to go out and look at it themselves. We said it was about 7 meters. And they came back, they called me, they were shocked. They said, you're right. But he said, we even think it's higher. We think it's up to 10 meters. Just to the north of us here, there's anywhere from 8 to 10 million tons of plastic on the ocean floor. That kind of volumes. A lot of the science that was, and the rhetoric that was pushed out about plastic is totally wrong. If you look at the plastic, they say that's going to last hundreds of years in the ocean. It actually doesn't last that long. The vast majority of plastic that would normally float getting into our ocean, it rolls down the riverbed because of the sediment and the silt that's in the river attaches itself to the plastic. The plastic loses its buoyancy and it sinks at that stage. The plastic rolls along the riverbed then like a plastic bag blown down the street till it reaches the ocean. If it stays within 5 meters, so if it's in within 2.5 fathom of the shore, that plastic itself will break down very, very quickly. It'll break down in weeks. As the sand moves back and forth over the plastic, it's like sandpaper, grinds it down really, really quickly. Once the plastic is between 5 to 10 meters, the plastic itself can last up to a year. Once it's deeper than that, it lasts a much longer period of time. The reason we know that, we've done multiple surveys on it, trying to see how fast this plastic would actually break down. We were shocked. We're absolutely shocked. We operate pretty much globally at this stage. We're very, very good at what we do. I look at plastic at this stage, the same way as looked at fish. Again, like, a very, very practical way of collecting it. And of course, we're very, very good at doing that. We looked at multiple different things. How can we collect plastic, and how can we improve the lives of indigenous people by doing that? When I looked at, say, the east and the south coast of India, just one area, that was the initial, I guess, type of study that we were doing, to see what these guys were earning, to see what it would take to get these guys to collect plastic. And the figures were, I was shocked. They'd earn about $3 a day. They work about 20 days a month, so they're earning about $60. Today, we work, of course, with these indigenous communities all over the place. We're tech-based. Again, like, we've apps for collecting, recording, tracing, everything that we do from start to finish. At the same time, we store all our data there on blockchain technology to give complete transparency there from start to finish. We're very different compared to anything on the planet. We believe in, again, coming up with real solutions regarding the problems of plastic, collect in a way that's going to make have a massive social impact inside the villages. With the likes of the latest app that we just launched, what that does is, we get the name of a collector, wherever he is, we get him to download the application. We get his family structure, wife, kids, whatever, inside the family. So we get all the data. So as he starts collecting the plastic, we're tracking him, the same as you're sitting inside an Uber. We're tracking where he's going on the boat, on the water, wherever he is. He's constantly taking photographs. All that data is constantly being uploaded on a QR code. It's uploaded onto a blockchain. So we get latitude, longitude, we get timestamp, everything else with that. Once we take the plastic ashore, we get a truck driver that picks up the plastic. He has the same application. He scans the fisherman's phone that's collecting the plastic. We take the QR code and we take all the data onto the truck driver's phone. Then we measure the carbon footprint of the truck going from the village all the way to one of our warehouses for separating, sorting, and recycling. As the plastic arrives there, we get the plastic again, it's audited. Independent audit is carried out. So we go through again what's there. The bags are open. The plastic is all separated, put into separate piles. The plastic at that stage is all weighed. When we know what's there, we send a signal back to the fisherman to show him what he actually collected there for the day. What we see there today, we see that fishermen now, they're earning over 20 times more money than what they were earning catching fish, working with us. In some cases, even much higher than that. So it's really, after changing so many communities, but there's the positive side of it, of course, is great. We ensure that these kids inside in the families, we make sure they're going to school. The application covers all of that. So if any one of these guys are working for us to collect plastic, one thing they have to do, they have to educate their children. They have to educate their children. They also have to make sure their kids can't get married at a very young age, a brutal problem in the developing world. So it's a win-win for the environment, it's a win for the communities, it's a win for our oceans, and of course, it's just a very, very practical solution. For every ton of plastic that we pull from the ocean, we reduce, again, with figures there for the United Nations, we reduce the global carbon footprint by over 3 tons of CO2 for every ton of plastic that we pull from the ocean. We do think, and we will push hard to achieve a goal there over the next few years, and that is to harvest or to handle 2 to 3 million tons of plastic a year, again, to make a tangible difference. At the same time, trying to stop the large volumes of plastic, I guess, on the shore, stop that actually getting into the rivers. We hope to announce there next week with 2 projects alone that we have here in Indonesia. And again, I speak about Indonesia because I live here. But those 2 projects in Indonesia are 2 interesting projects which will recycle up to 7,000 tons of plastic a day. Again, waste. Stop that waste being incinerated, stop it being burnt. Again, come up with a practical solution with that. Ireland is an amazing country of my birth, country I love very much. And again, I look at the fishing industry in Ireland. I look how the fishing industry in Ireland are being attacked again by a lot of these so-called environmental organizations. Fishermen, for us, are the solution. Fishermen are not the problem. When we look at the volumes of plastic, we separate. Like I said, we get the plastic to our warehouse, we separate the plastic, and we try to identify where the plastic is coming from. We've been doing that now for years. We estimate ourselves over 95% of the plastic that's getting into our ocean is coming down rivers. So stopping it in the rivers is crucial. We also estimate 4.5% of plastics is being dumped directly into the ocean by coastal communities, a direct dump outside of the rivers, 4.5%. We estimate 0.5% is coming from oil and gas industry, fishing industry, and commercial shipping. That's what we estimate. And again, we're the only ones on the planet that have any serious amount of data to work on. Constantly, when I speak to these politicians that push the narrative that the fishing industry is a problem, I ask one question. I said, where's your data? Where are you getting it from? Where'd you come up with these numbers? Again, it's estimated. The European Union came out last year and they came closer to our figures. They came along and they said that they estimated themselves as about 25 million tons. They went from 12 million tons to 25 million tons. Some of that they went on our data again to come up with this number, but they doubled the estimated volumes of plastic into the ocean. We think we're even low at 30 million tons. But even at 30 million tons, the total amount of plastic that's made between the agricultural and aquaculture industry and the fishing industry is between 900,000 and 1.1 million tons. If 100% of that went into the river, into the ocean on a yearly basis, be less than 3% that's actually making it there. So the numbers and the rhetoric that's been pushed, again, attacking the fishing industry is absolutely ludicrous. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they're incredible figures. And there was a documentary a few years back now on TV, and it was showing the amount of plastic pollution going down the rivers in East Asia, and a lot of that plastic was actually coming from Europe and was supposed to be going to these countries to be recycled. And rather than being recycled, these people didn't have the facilities to do this, and so it was nearly like a gimmick that from European countries and other developed countries that there was actually recycling facilities in these countries.
Yeah, we see plastic from Norway. We saw plastic from the Faroe Islands. I saw plastic from UK, Australia, US, Canada, you name it. Every Western country we see plastic from it. I'm here in Southeast Asia. Yesterday I see some of our indigenous fishermen. They sent me some photographs there last night. Plastic from Spain, stuff we hadn't seen. We had never seen stuff from Spain before, but it was stuff from Spain. The likes of the so-called Great Pacific Garbage Patch and these islands of plastic offshore, they don't exist. They don't exist. They sound good. They're good marketing tools for environmental organizations to raise money. That's about it. Is there massive volumes of plastic in the ocean? Yes, staggering. Much higher than what people think. The vast majority of plastic is within 10 nautical miles of most of these major rivers. If you, or anyone, I guess, that have any knowledge of the ocean, if you throw anything into the ocean, within a short period of time, different animals will grow on that. Little barnacles, mussels, whatever it is. And of course, it loses its buoyancy, it sinks. So the vast majority of plastic stays pretty close. Larger plastics with thicker walls on them, like so trawl float or something like that will stay afloat. So it's very deceiving, like when people see in a remote island, they can see a half a dozen trawl floats, and they see a half dozen trawl floats, and they say, wow, well, we got 10 kilos of plastic, and there were 6 kilos or 7 kilos of trawl floats. Those figures are not accurate. The volumes of plastic stays pretty close. The problem with the plastic in the ocean right now, it's killing everything. The dead zones, around these countries, of course, are expanding. Just to the north of me here, and again, I'll just speak about here because that's where I am at the moment. The area, of course, is expanding on a yearly basis. The plastic itself, as it breaks down, it creates this toxic sludge. the sludge itself, once the plastic that's down on the ocean floor with that sediment on it, of course, as the sand moves back and forth over it, slices up these particles of plastic. All the small microplastics and nanoplastics, then they float up to the surface. These pieces of plastic, for the most part, are too small to sustain any life, so they stay afloat. These become a massive problem at that stage. The bioplanktons in the ocean, as they rise in the nighttime to feed, of course, they see these small particles in the ocean. They see it as a food source. They go to eat it, and when they eat it, it's poisoning them. The reason it's poisoning them is something that has only come to light, I think, with the last couple of years. The nanoplastics and the microplastics in the ocean. If you would imagine you had a pond outside your house, and the pond was very highly toxic, right? Lots of pollutant inside the pond. One of the easiest ways to clean that pond is actually throw lots of microplastics into the pond. What happens is all the toxins in the pond attaches itself to the microplastics, and then it's a little bit easier to remove the microplastics without losing the water. So what's happening in the ocean? Our governments back in the late 50s, early 60s, they, with the United Nations, they figured that our ocean was vast enough to handle the amount of toxins that was actually going into the ocean. And when you do the math on it, they were actually kind of right. It actually was. But nobody, and again, I'm not for a minute saying like we should be putting toxins in the ocean. Of course we shouldn't. But what no one accounted for at the time, if you put microplastics and nanoplastics into the ocean at the same time, what's going to happen now? So that created this perfect storm. Now you had all these toxins, all these chemicals, and you had all these plastics. When they came together, it was a brutal problem. Again, the toxins attached to the plastic and the plankton started to die. Reading a lot of papers there with the last year, and some videos I actually saw from back at home in Ireland this year. You see on the south coast, I saw video footage and drone footage of basking sharks. Basking sharks are starving. They've never looked, they're in really poor condition. They've never looked like that before. There's less and less plankton in the ocean. It's a brutal problem. Like what's going on, like, there, unless we do something, take it serious and do something to address it, we're in serious trouble. We can build all the wind farms we like, onshore, offshore, do whatever we like with them. We can go to all AVs tomorrow morning. We can do all of this, do this big, massive change. Is it going to help us? The answer is no, none whatsoever. We have to fix the problem regarding pollution. Pollution is the single biggest threat to our planet. That's not scaremongering. That's a fact. And everyone can agree on that. It's a massive problem. If we continue to lose plankton in our ocean like we're losing it, we will lose all life in our ocean. If we lose that, we're in serious trouble. It's like the programs again for planting trees. People think like we can plant 5 or 6 or 7 billion trees and we're going to be okay. The lungs of our planet is our ocean. It's coming from these little animals, these bioplanktons in the ocean. We have to improve the health of our ocean. If we don't, shame on us.
Well, that's true. I think that's a lot of the emphasis has been on planting trees and creating greenways and doing all these different things, and the really valuable influence on our atmosphere does come from the ocean, and it does come from plankton and phytoplankton and all the stuff it's been ignored. What's happening to it at the moment, Kieran? So ocean integrity, how did that come about, and who's involved in it?
How it came about initially was myself and a few Coast Guard officers in the United States. That was the initial, I guess, thought behind ocean integrity. I was asked again by some of the Coast Guard guys, how can we do something? How can, you're a fisherman, they knew me, again, became friends with them over the years living in the US. And how can we collect plastic, and how can we do something that's actually going to make a tangible difference, change, I guess. So that's how it's came to where it is today. At the moment, we operate there in 59 different countries. We're constantly expanding. We hope by the end of next year we'll be in well over 100 countries. And of course, like our network of companies, of course, like, there and partnerships there globally has grown the whole time. We're a very, very practical organization, very, very practical. We believe in a couple of things. We believe if you can't prove it, it didn't happen. So track and trace is crucial for us. The environmental world is corrupt to the core. absolutely and utterly corrupt. Again, you just see the amount of money that's gone into it. It is absolutely ludicrous. They're estimating between now and 2050, they just increased the amount of revenue they think, or the amount of money it's going to take to actually achieve the goals that they've set up. Most of these schemes are nothing but greenwashing schemes, massive greenwashing schemes. Companies like BlackRock and the likes will just become multi-trillion dollar organizations. Again, they're just their whole control of the global economy, like, just increasing. So they're estimating now at the moment that they're going to spend a total of $266 trillion by 2050. Again, it'll bankrupt every single country on the planet. It'll bankrupt the whole lot. It's not what they're talking about doing is not going to work. It hasn't worked. I can't see why it's going to work right now. Who inside the corporation? Again, it's mixed, a mixed bunch. Quite a few mariners, quite a few Coast Guard guys, and a lot more, I guess, with the last year and a half. A lot more high-profile people, I guess, from the business world are jumping on board. Again, we're the only practical environmental organization on the planet. We come up with practical solutions. We can offset any company's carbon footprint, again, with little to no cost to them by doing that. Again, we look at everything in a very, very, very practical way. I think like a fisherman. I guess I was a fisherman for far too long, and that's the way I think. How can we balance the books at the end of the day? How can we give companies value for money at the same time get them to achieve their goals? I guess that's the way we operate. We have a new platform that we're launching there on the 30th of January. We're very, very excited about that. We see that as a massive solution for corporations or for individuals, that they can actually invest in the future of the planet. I look at a lot of the large Fortune 100 companies, and they have lots of money to spend. They have big money, spend $5, $10, $20 million, like, they're on environmental and social projects. What do they get from that? They get absolutely nothing. They put this money in, they tick boxes, and their money is gone. The new platform that we're launching there, and like I said, we hope to have the launch there on the 30th of January. The team that's building that's been built with Ocean Integrity there in Switzerland. The company that's actually helping there launch that. Again, it's another one of our companies under the Ocean Integrity Group. But it's a great solution. I think the only solution of its kind. So where corporations with this, they can invest money and they get a digital asset back in return. So if they spend $50, they get $50 of a digital asset back. That digital asset, of course, we can show on that we have plastic collected on it. We can show like how it's reducing the carbon footprint. We can show how it's eliminating, like, their plastic waste, eliminating their plastic footprint, carbon footprint, the global plastic footprint, global carbon footprint, how it's improving the lives of people. We can show the whole lot. We tick all the ESG boxes with it, and also we tick all companies' CSR. So it's a very, very unique platform, but at the same time, corporations can actually make money. They can invest and make money. But the general public can buy tokens as well. We see it like, it is something that will change. It'll change the environmental space. As the environmental groups and the radical environmental groups, they say they want this great reset. Well, we say we want to reset. The reset we want to do is do that with the environmental space. Pull the environmental world apart and get them to reset and fix and stop the corruption that's within it.
Well, there's an argument against creating more plastic, and there's the argument that says we cannot live without it. Which one is right? Can we still create plastic but act responsibly in its disposal? Recycling?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, 100% of plastics can be recycled. If you look at ways of fighting climate change, look at a very practical way of fighting climate change, right? For instance, Ireland. Ireland, look at the plastic waste, or just the waste overall, all the household waste Ireland actually has. By having a system in place, having technology in place with zero waste to landfill, 100% recycling of that. If you look at that can reduce Ireland's carbon footprint by over 35% by just doing that. This, again, you can produce electricity, you can produce green fuel, diesels, the likes of whatever, again, like, you know, to run our tractors or fishing vessels and so on and so forth. If you look at the other side of it, right, if you look at the proposal the Irish government have right now, and they want to kill off 200,000 cattle in Ireland, again, does it make sense? It's absolutely ludicrous. So if you look at combine the two of these together, if you increase the dairy herd and the beef industry in Ireland, increase the beef industry in Ireland by over 1 million cattle, instead of decreasing it, increase it by 1 million cattle. And if you measure the carbon footprint of the cattle coming from South America, if you measure the carbon footprint of those cattle actually being raised there, again with the deforestation and everything else, and look at the numbers again that are through the universities, that are being, again, that are tried, tested, and well accepted there globally. If you look at that and zero waste to landfill, that would put Ireland would become carbon neutral by doing that. Ireland reduced its carbon footprint last year by 1.6%. 1.6%. The programs that they're putting in place, they're all failed. Plastic is one of the greatest things we ever invented. It's also one of the biggest problems that we have, right? I mean, it's a brutal problem. So to say that we can get rid of plastic is ludicrous. I mean, absolutely ludicrous. We can't. I mean, we absolutely can't. It has, again, very, very low carbon footprint. Produce is cheap. Well, you have to come up with real solutions. And the solutions for it, there are certain plastics that we need to look at and find ways of, I guess, eliminating them. Some of the multi-layer plastics, the aluminum foils and stuff that is quite difficult to recycle. It can be recycled, but it's harder to recycle. The likes of those plastics, we should be taking them off the table. But the other plastics, the likes of the polyethylenes and all these plastics are easy to recycle. We recycle plastics, the likes of plastic bags back into plastic bags, bottles back into bottles. We turn plastics into aggregate for road surfacing, for asphalt for road surfacing. We turn plastic into aggregate for building houses. We turn plastics into fuel to generate electricity. We turn plastics into fuel for diesels and gasoline and stuff to drive cars and trucks. There's so many different things you can do with it. We can create, in the likes of Ireland, you can create thousands of jobs, have a green economy, but don't hurt businesses by doing that. Again, have something. Sustainability and having every industry, making them sustainable is crucial, is absolutely crucial. It's something that we have to do. We look again, like, you know, back to Ireland. I was speaking there with Johnny Welch, with the Rachel J. He's well known in the fishing industry. Johnny has 3 vessels. Johnny just signed up there to our Blue Ocean program. Again, an Irish fisherman working with a former Irish fisherman. What does that mean for Johnny? Well, we track all the plastic that Johnny is using, right? That's gone to his boat, and we record all the plastic Johnny is getting off his boat. Something very simple, something BIM should have been doing, but they didn't do. They didn't do it correctly, right? We're actually measuring the whole lot, and we tokenize the whole lot. We get all that plastic, all that data, we put it up in a blockchain. We do something else. We take Johnny's old fishing nets, his own prawn trawls and the likes of that. We take them from him. For Johnny, put a couple of nets aside for us there at the moment. With those couple of nets, we will probably, on the low side, pull 2,000 tons of plastic there from the ocean with Johnny's nets in a year. Probably 2,000 tons. So Johnny's carbon or plastic footprint, Johnny's plastic footprint on a couple of nets, 700-800 kilos, 1,000 kilos, not a lot. I mean, it's very, very low, right? Maybe 1,000 kilos, maybe 1,000 kilos max. That's about it. But those 1,000 kilos of nets that Johnny had, instead of getting them recycled or trying to get them recycled, we take the likes of them and we'll reduce the plastic footprint inside the ocean by 1,000 kilos of nets from an Irish fisherman in Kinsale. We will pull 2 million kilos of plastic from the ocean, say in the Caribbean or South America or Africa or Asia, wherever it is. We will put at least 2 million kilos, maybe 3 or 4 million kilos. We will pull from the ocean with the likes of that. So again, we can show that the fishing industry is the solution. Back to it again. Fishermen are the solution. And again, we all the time we tap into that. We tap into that because, again, I'm a fisherman. I will always be a fisherman. I wear an environmental hat now, but I'm a fisherman. I think like a fisherman, and I think, how can I help the industry that I grew up in, the industry I love? How can I help that? How can I help the fishery become more sustainable? How can I get a positive message out to the fishing industry, for the fishing industry, to show that the fishermen are actually working together, and that fishermen in Kinsale not alone is removing plastic, say in West Africa or South America, wherever it may be, at the same time, he's helping protect indigenous fishermen somewhere else around the world. How neat is that?
Well, that's a great story because, as you said before, there's so much negativity around the fishing industry and around what the fishing industry is doing. And a lot of it is coming from people who are not really interested in my opinion, are not really interested in the environment. A lot of them very interested in being in charge of an NGO or creating some sort of an idea that gets them into the funding sphere. And what you were talking about there a little while ago was plastic and how it can be reused and reshaped. And I was reading a very interesting article some time back, and they were talking about the drive that these NGOs are talking about glass and wooden products, and we should be using all this. And they're totally counterproductive because the energy that's required to recycle these products is far more than what it is to recycle plastic.
Yeah, the carbon footprint, of course, like of glass bottles. People the whole time they say, like, let's go to glass. I mean, it's not a solution. Look at the multiple different sides of it. The carbon footprint to actually produce it, to make it, the energy, everything else is associated with glass, the mining, everything, you name it. I mean, it's extremely high. On top of that, the logistics side of it, the weight of a glass bottle compared to a plastic bottle. You look at a small plastic bottle that's less than 30 grams of plastic. I mean, 30 grams, super, super light, versus, like, you're talking about a glass bottle that could be up to 250 to 300 grams. So it's 10 times the weight, right? So you look at even the carbon footprint of moving it from A to B is extremely high. Not alone the manufacturing of it. Again, it is looking at paper. Paper, like, there is one of the worst things we can actually use. We got rid of in many places, we got rid of these plastic bags, easy to recycle plastic bags, because we said they were bad for the environment. And a lot of places went to paper. Look at what are we doing with paper? I mean, paper is brutal. All the chemicals and everything else to use on paper, to produce the paper, not alone the smallest and the most, people think the most negative thing with paper is cutting down the tree. That's actually a small part of it. Of course, it's terrible cutting down trees, but that's only the small part. To produce the pulp and everything else, and the chemicals and bleaches and the acids and everything else that's being used, of course, that you can't recycle and you can't do anything with, of course, is highly toxic. So paper is not the solution. So if we instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we definitely need to fix the problem of pollution, 100%. But we need to be practical about this. We have to be practical about it. What is the best thing? We need to be real when we start looking at what the carbon footprint of something really is. We have to measure it. We can't leave emotions take control of the situation. In the environmental space right now, you have very loud activists within the vegan industry. And of course, the vegan industry pump a fortune into these narratives. The likes of Seaspiracy, again, the documentary that came out that did a lot of damage to the fishing industry. The fishing industry still did not recover from the likes of Seaspiracy. It did brutal damage. The vast majority of young people that look at it to this day, when people look at that, of course, they believe what they're seeing. I get on the likes of LinkedIn. I have a fairly good following on LinkedIn, and of course, I'd be very vocal, I guess, about the problems and the solution all the time. But I constantly, get, again, the whole thing with Seaspiracy comes up. Is there problems in the industry? Of course, there's problems in the industry. Of course. Do these problems have to be fixed? Of course, they have to be fixed. There's no doubt about it. The Irish fishing industry can operate sustainably, the entire industry, if there was some changes made. At the end of the day, the problems that Ireland have, of course, like, is the European Parliament. Again, pushing so much foreign vessels into Irish waters is a massive problem. A massive problem. Ireland just went through a round of decommissioning, where again we lost a massive part of the fleet, the Irish fleet. Again, that was terrible to see, right? Surely, if there was going to be a problem after Brexit, less quota, surely the foreign vessels operating in Irish waters should have been decommissioned. Irish vessels shouldn't have been decommissioned. At the end of the day, Ocean Integrity believes, and on our white papers that we constantly push, We speak about sustainability a lot. We speak about the fishing industry all the time. But we do believe in one thing. No foreign vessel should operate inside another vessel's EEZ. Nobody. No European vessel should operate within the Irish EEZ. And then Ireland would have no problems whatsoever. Ireland could probably increase its fleet, create more jobs, and create more revenue for the country by doing that. On top of that, we see the mindless programs that's put in with the environmental protective areas, these EPAs that they're pushing, or marine protected areas that they're pushing there globally at the moment. Are they going to work? And of course, the answer is no. Again, all it does is shuts down good prime fishing areas inshore for the most part, areas they can control. But if you look at a more practical way, all water outside of, say, 400 or 500 fathom, ban it all. Outside 400 or 500 fathom. Then you're talking about 60, 70, 80% of the waters all over the world is shut down. It's not going to affect the inshore waters. At the same time, proper science and proper stock assessment on a yearly basis. But again, like, the government seems to be missing that. I see not a trade agreement they're trying to push now to leave Icelandic vessels, again, harvest more fish inside the Irish waters. Again, like, there's no thought being put into this. It's like that they don't seem to care. They don't seem to care whatsoever, like, but the fishing industry just seems to be just a soft target. And some of the problems is the fishermen themselves are so busy. They're so busy with regulation and trying to fight their corner the whole time. They haven't got the time. And lots of them are so discouraged at this stage. They're just waving that white flag. But I think we can bring it back. And let's start on one thing. We'll start on one thing with plastic. Let's show how that the Irish fishing industry is one of the best tools in the world for eliminating plastic waste. And ocean integrity is going to do that, and is already doing that with the fishing industry in Ireland.
Well, and another one of my opinions, and I don't like expressing my opinions a lot, but I think the Irish government and a lot of the governments across Europe, and I think the EU itself, is very, very poor at looking after the environment. They have ideas that they push, which doesn't work, and then they're going to push more stuff on the environment that's going to damage it to a greater degree. And like, one of those things, and I think it's offshore wind farms, and I know you've been quite vocal about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the offshore wind farms are, a disaster. An absolute disaster. We have seen what's after happening on the east coast of the United States this year. It is estimated now well over 200 whales were killed as they were migrating north there in the start of the year. Nearly 100 washed ashore. When you see the U.S. Coast Guard and pulling a NOAA, towing carcasses of whales offshore and punching holes in them so they won't wash up on the beach and create a problem. When you see that number of whales that actually died this year, it's alarming. The only thing that changed off the east coast of the States this year was the work commenced on the offshore wind farms, the seismic work, and so on and so forth. The whales started washing ashore and beaching themselves like never before. Nothing had changed besides the activities that actually is taking place off the east coast. Furthermore, one of the biggest problems that I see, and I was shocked when I was in Denmark and looking at the wind farms in Denmark. We were there to build some nets. We build these nets, we call them MPEDs, that collects large particles of plastic down to small particles all the way down to 65 microns. So microplastics we harvest in the oceans as well. But when I was there, I just asked a question, right? He was the CEO of Nordathrall at the time, Fleming Ruby, good friend of mine, great guy. I said, Fleming, are there any fish inshore? Beside the bays, see these big, beautiful bays. And I just thought it was strange. Every day I was there, I never seen any boats fishing in there. And he said, no, there's no fish there. I said, what do you mean? I said, there's no fish. And he said, there's in these inshore waters, the fish has disappeared there with years. And I said, when did this roughly start to happen? And he said, well, about 10 years ago, massive decline. But he said it started probably prior to that. All that's happened inside the ocean there is that they build these offshore structures, build massive amounts of them. The sheer volumes of structures that we're talking about building in the ocean there globally the planet has never seen anything like this. If you look at oil and gas platforms, I mean, it's very limited, right? I mean, the amount of you see, even in the Gulf of Mexico, places where there's massive production of oil, there's not that many platforms. But now you're talking about putting tens of thousands of platforms all over our planet, and that's a problem. When I asked Fleming in Denmark, like, there about what was going on, I says, hey, by any chance could I go out? I just want to go out and look at one of these structures. And he says, yeah, by all means. So I got a local guy to bring me out in the boat, and I was shocked. When I got close to the platforms, they're covered, the legs are covered in filter feeders, mussels, barnacles, different things, right? All filter feeders growing on the legs of these. And straight away, you think there's something not right here. I mean, this is a problem, right? These are filter feeders. So there is some papers being written at the moment, and there is concerns, a lot of more people concerned about the rhetoric that we've been pushing now for several years now. They putting a structure offshore that will harbor invasive species is illegal under international law. It's actually illegal to do that. The amount of structures that we're going to put in Ireland is going to create a massive problem to our ecosystem. The very same problem what happened in Denmark, inshore in Denmark. As our fish spawn, all different types of fish spawn, most of the larvae, the fish, comes to the surface of the water. When they come to the surface of the water, the filter feeders, of course, eat them. A lot of them, eat quite a few of them. The recruitment back to the ocean floor is not strong enough. And of course, the biomass of fish started to collapse in Denmark. Inshore in Denmark, there's no fish left. The same thing is going to happen in Ireland. Our ecosystem, one thing we can all agree on, it is very fragile. We must have a way to protect it, right? We need fishing. We need sustainability within the fishing industry. It has to be done in a way that's going to benefit the country, that's going to be good for the environment, and of course, like it has to keep together rural communities in Ireland. I mean, that's crucial. That's crucial that we do that. Food security should be a national security issue. It has to be a national security issue. If not, our government has some serious questions to answer. But when you look at what's happening, like what happened in Denmark, and to put all these structures in Ireland and around the UK and say, well, we will do some type of environmental impact studies, we'll do it down the road, right? Right now, we need to meet our targets. We have to meet our targets because we only achieved 1.6% reduction last year. So we're going to head full steam ahead with this. We're not going to do any environmental impact studies till after the fact. That can't happen. I mean, that can't happen. We mounted a massive campaign against the wind farms there on the East Coast, and we were fairly successful with that. For the most part, again, we just got lots of communities. But lots of communities more and more active in it, and we pushed them. And between ourselves and all the other communities, we got them pulling out. Again, there's 5 or 6 of the programs or projects on the East Coast of the United States now are to withdraw, and they're not going ahead with these. If you look all over the world where they have these offshore wind industries platforms, they're decommissioning them. They're not sustainable. The price of electricity is sky high. One thing that I was on a radio show in Ireland there about a year and a half ago, and some lobbyists came on the day after me. They refused to come one-on-one to debate. I've asked Grace O'Sullivan on a regular basis to come and debate me, environmentalist to environmentalist. I said, Grace, come on, don't hide behind your gender. Don't say that you're not going to debate me. Debate me one-on-one. Again, like, about what is the best way forward for a healthy ecosystem. Let's have a discussion. Let's have a discussion. Don't hide behind your position. And of course, she refuses to do it. If you look at the lobbyists, like, that constantly come back and they say that the price of energy is going to come down because of we put enough of these structures in the ocean. That's actually not true. They announced there 3 weeks ago that the price of electricity, where it is right now, for them just to break even, they have to increase it 70% from where it is now. So if the Irish people can afford a jump on whatever they're paying for the electricity, just think about this. Whatever you're paying for your electricity, for your business or your home, if your business can survive with 100% increase minimum, that's giving them a 30% margin. if you can survive with 100% increase from where your electricity bill is now, you have no problem. But if your business can't afford that, you need to stand up and you need to call your local politician and you need to say to them, hey, stop the madness. This is not going to work.
Well, and it also comes back to the what we're talking about beforehand, and what you mentioned was plankton and phytoplankton, the really essential substance life that's in the ocean, and these offshore wind farms is going to destroy this, and it's such a big such a big issue that they're not even looking at, which is for environmentalists, it's amazing.
It's the elephant in the room, right? And nobody's willing to speak about it. We constantly speak about it. We're after releasing half a dozen white papers on it. Over 70% of the oxygen we breathe, again, is coming from these bioplanktons, right? And like, you know, we look at the structures. Yeah, it's going to decimate, absolute decimate, the biomass, like, you know, there of these small animals, going to cause massive problems. And it's like that they don't seem to either know, or they're badly informed, or they just don't care. It's one of the three. I mean, it's definitely one of the three.
It's in my opinion, it's money. A lot. There's a lot of investment in this, and there's a lot of money to be made from it. So personally, I think that the agenda is being pushed because there's a lot of politicians standing to make a lot of money out of this, whether not maybe now, but in the future.
100%. I didn't want to go down that road, but again, corruption is a massive problem.
Yeah,
there's a lot of corruption involved in this, brutal corruption. The numbers don't make sense. I mean, the numbers just don't make sense. How can you, if you are after being elected by the Irish people to represent the Irish people, and you knowingly are going ahead with this, that you're going to put economic hardship on the people that elected you into that position, there's something seriously wrong here. You need to look in the mirror if you're a politician and you're after doing this to the people that gave you your job. Our politicians need to remember one thing, something they're after forgetting. They're meant to be working for us, but they became so arrogant. They become so arrogant with the last few years, again, that they seem to be after losing that. I can speak openly about politicians the whole time. We don't take money from governments. You know, people ask me the whole time, they say that, well, you know, you can't speak out against governments. We don't take any money from them. We've never taken a penny from a government, and we never will. We never will. We will keep our integrity of our organization. We'll keep that together at all costs. We'll never lose that. We'll never be bought by a corrupt government or a corrupt politician, again, and do the wrong thing.
Well, Kieran, just before we finish up, could you tell people how they can get involved with ocean integrity?
Yeah, of course. You can. One of the easiest ways to reach me, of course, like, you know, there is through LinkedIn. You can follow my LinkedIn page as Captain Kieran Kelly. That's an easy way to do it. Again, like I said, we have a new platform coming out there shortly. If you look at, we come up with real practical solutions for any company. We have from little coffee shops to Fortune 50 companies, right? So we have some massive corporations to tiny little businesses. And we do something very, very simple. You buy a cup of coffee, you have a coffee shop, you're selling coffee. For every cup of coffee you sell, put a small surcharge on it. It can be pennies, but that can remove 10, 20, 30 grams of plastic there from the ocean for every single item that you actually sell. All your ESG requirements, or even if you want to do it just personally, again, you can show by you operating your business, it's not costing you anything. It's not costing your customers pennies. No one's going to feel it. But again, it is, if you're looking at the problems that we actually face, there's real simple solutions there for it. And that is, less talk, more action. Collect the plastic inside the ocean. Do it in a way how we can empower businesses. For every item that you sell, we have an alcohol company there, a beer company that just signed up with us. We're meant to be announcing it there shortly. Again, for every beer they sell, they will be paying for the equivalent of 2 plastic bottles coming out of the ocean for every beer they sell. Something really simple, right? Again, it costs pennies. There's pennies onto a beer. Nobody sees it. But at the end of the year, that beer company will take millions, the equivalent of millions and millions of bottles from the ocean every year. We tick all their boxes. We tick every single box to have. We reduce their carbon footprint. we turn around, we eliminate our plastic footprint. And of course, on the social side of it there, we get people in indigenous villages, we get them real jobs with real money. And of course, we track and trace, and we can show the movement of all that from start to finish. That's what makes us so unique.
Well, Kieran, it's such an interesting topic, and it's a great thing to be doing for the environment and for the future of the planet. And we'd like you to come back sometime and speak more about what you're doing, and maybe give us more on the new platform and on the new projects that you have working.
100%. We do know our new platform is going to change the world, and it's going to change the way business is done. I mean, it's definitely going to change everything. We're so excited about that. We have a lot of time, a lot of effort put into it at this stage. We have an amazing team working on that, and we're super excited about it. We're super, super excited. We will have several press releases over the next few months. Again, there's only 2 months before our launch, so it's only right around the corner.
Well, thank you, Kieran, for joining us today.
All right, thank you.